Quick question. Have you ever thought to yourself, isn't sex supposed to be easy? I'm going to argue today that a lot of sex and relationship struggles are not at all personal defects. They're actually predictable outcomes of cultural conditioning, especially around unrealistic standards for men and the things that we absorb from adult content and jokes and our families and our early experiences. Now, we already understand that intelligence isn't just one thing, right? People have different strengths. And I think we've missed one that matters a lot: erotic intelligence. Some people are just innately better at sex. They just seem to get it. And for other folks, just like everything else that we've talked about today, it is a learnable skill. And when you really think about it, how could sex be easy? It is one of the most vulnerable things that we ever do. It's filled with risk and reward. It is deeply intimate. It is very high stakes for the nervous system. So if sex hasn't always been easy for you, if you've struggled or you're still learning, know this: you are normal. The idea that you should be able to just close the door and it's just going to work, that if you're in love, sex is always going to be amazing, you'll always orgasm at the exact same time, that is not truth. That is cultural programming. And here is the good news. The more that you can dispel these myths, the more that you will clear the gunk out of your cultural engine so that you can regain choice and autonomy. Let's talk about the cultural messages that you get both explicitly and implicitly about what men are supposed to be. You get the message that you are supposed to be good at sex, to want it constantly, and prioritize it always, or else something is wrong with you. Men especially get the message that you should always be ready for sex, have a huge penis, and last forever, round after round after round. But here's what these myths do. They create threat. Because no one can live up to all of the cultural expectations, certainly not at the same time. So threat triggers adrenaline, and adrenaline disrupts your arousal, your presence, your erections, your orgasm, and your ejaculation control. And then we spiral. Thought, threat, body, outcome, shame, and back around again. So if you are dealing with any challenge in bed, there is a good chance that it is living somewhere inside of this spiral, or at least being made worse by it. So let's work together to dispel the 7 most pervasive cultural myths that I see. Now, I've been on YouTube for 10 years and I have read an absurd number of comments, sometimes to the detriment of my mental health. And I study the way that people talk about men and sex and relationships online. And these 7 myths are the ones that I see over and over again. And by the way, everything I'm sharing with you today in my talk is straight out of the book. Every single thing is straight out of Harder, Better, Longer, Stronger. But I'm giving them to you here with a little bit extra flavor and some behind the scenes commentary. All right, let's get it cracking. Myth number 1, one of my most hated myths: women don't want sex. This creates what I call initiator shame, because if you believe that women don't want sex, but then you have sex with them anyways, then you will naturally come to feel guilty, right? Like, is she just doing this for me? And of course, that guilt is going to live in your body as shame. Survey data actually shows that a meaningful chunk of people still believe that men need sex more than women, while more people, the majority, actually believe that men and women need sex about the same amount. And the research overall suggests that men and women desire sex at surprisingly similar rates. But what keeps this myth alive is the sexlessness prophecy, the cultural script that says you fall in love, the sex is hot, you get married, and then inevitably you stop having sex. But that's not some universal truth. That is a cultural storyline, but it becomes self-fulfilling. Now here's the missing piece, what I like to call the ravioli study. If you ask both men and women, do you like sex? But men are having sex that's optimized for their pleasure, and women are having sex that leaves them unsatisfied, then you're not really asking them the same question. That's like asking 2 people if they like ravioli, when one of them is eating fresh farm-to-table ravioli and the other is eating Chef Boyardee. Same ravioli, right? Same word, but two totally different experiences. When you change the question to, do you like quality sex? Men and women's responses start to look a lot more similar. And here is the missing context. In long-term relationships, especially for women, desire correlates strongly with emotional safety. When women feel emotionally safe, respected, supported, like they have equality and their boundaries are being honored, desire tends to rise. Relationship satisfaction and sexual satisfaction are so tightly linked that sometimes the real move isn't to try harder in bed. Sometimes it's just to build safety and connection so that sex can be wanted instead of performed. Moving on to myth number 2, that women's orgasms are difficult. This belief feeds the orgasm gap. And here's the key point. It is not your fault. We were all taught that sex equals penetration, that penis in vagina is sex. And why wouldn't you believe that? There are not a lot of places out there that you could go to learn about this. But the vagina is not the primary organ of female pleasure. So trying to make her orgasm through penetration alone often leads to frustration, and then everyone thinks that female pleasure is somehow complicated. Now, this is the orgasm gap. Straight men report orgasm at very high rates during intercourse, and straight women report it at much lower rates. In fact, the lowest of all groups studied. Now, this doesn't prove that women's orgasms are harder. It proves that we have normalized a kind of sex that isn't built for female pleasure. But here's the thing. With a little bit of information, we can close this gap, because clitorises are highly orgasmic. Most women can easily become multi-orgasmic. This isn't biology failing. This is a cultural script winning. Now, on to myth number 3. If you don't please her, someone else will. I hate this one. This one breeds jealousy and insecurity, and it shows up constantly in marketing and online comments like, if you can't make her come, she'll get somebody else to do it. A lot of this actually traces back to a double standard. The idea that a woman is either pure or dirty, worthy or not, and it actually creates 2 surprising outcomes. First, a threat framing. The belief that other men are constant competition, that her male friends, coworkers, or her just existing in public is a threat. That mindset wastes your energy and erodes trust. And it won't prevent cheating anyway. You cannot police someone into loyalty. If someone wants to cheat, they will. Second, it produces slut shaming. If you want women to be sexual and you want to have sex with women, then it makes sense to just support women's sexuality. When we punish female desire, we don't just hurt women, we actually poison the entire ecosystem, including our own relationship. Myth number 4. Women only want a man with a 6-pack who is 6 feet and makes 6 figures. The result of this belief is a feeling of hopelessness. Now, here is the most important piece, though. A lot of men cling to this myth because it protects them. Because if women only want that, then you don't have to try. You can pre-reject yourself before anyone can reject you. And that keeps you safe, but it also keeps you stuck. Now, there's a lot of red pill mythology in here, and it is worth asking, who benefits from you believing this? Because it's not you. But here is the coolest part. It's not supported by data. It's not supported by data. Please check your assumptions on this. What women consistently report being attracted to is kindness, intelligence, and generosity. And by the way, there's some important history to take into account here, because for a long time, women had fewer paths to financial independence, right? They couldn't get their own mortgage. They couldn't sign up for a credit card without a man co-signing. So these provider traits mattered a lot when women were selecting mates, right? But we are in a major cultural shift right now. More women are no longer choosing partners solely on the basis of provision. Now, it is true that with dating apps, superficial filters like height can get overly weighted because chemistry is impossible to assess through a screen. But when researchers study what predicts attraction and relationship formation, these relational traits show up again and again and again. Myth number 5. Sex is only good if you make her come. If orgasm is the only marker of success, then pressure will take over. She will feel managed and you will feel evaluated. Connection will disappear. This also increases the likelihood of fake orgasms. Because if she knows that you won't feel okay unless she orgasms, then faking it becomes the path of least resistance. Now, data backs this up. Intercourse alone is sufficient for orgasm for a minority of women. Most need clitoral stimulation. And Dr. Lori Mintz nailed it when she said that expecting orgasm from penetration without clitoral stimulation is like expecting a man to orgasm from only touching his balls. Let's stop using her orgasm as a performance review. Because if the goal is mutual pleasure and connection and satisfaction, then orgasm actually becomes way more likely, not less. Because as I love to say, orgasms are like cats. The more you chase them, the harder they hide. Myth number 6, bigger equals better. This results in a sense of inadequacy. Yes, some research suggests that women may prefer slightly above average, but the bigger point is that preferences vary widely, and most women prefer a partner who they love, someone who is skilled, present, and erotically intelligent. But the real win is getting out of performance mode here and back into pleasure. So please stop obsessing over size and bring your focus back to what actually creates great sex: skill, attunement, confidence, and connection. Myth number 7 is that sex should look like porn. The result is watching yourself, performing instead of feeling. Porn is paid performers on a closed set and designed for the camera. It's designed for aesthetics and entertainment. Real sex is for you and your partner. No camera, no audience, and no need to optimize optics over sensation. Porn is amazing. It can be phenomenal at sparking creative ideas, at giving you all kinds of erotic inspiration, but it doesn't replace sex ed. The sex that you have at home should be shaped by what feels connected and good for both of you, not what looks impressive. Now, here's the problem with all of these myths. They run silently in the background as unconscious beliefs, like apps that you forgot you installed and they're just draining your battery. They override your intentions unless you bring them into the light. And I want to end on what might be the biggest myth of all. Sex doesn't equal love. Love doesn't equal worth. Sex is not proof that you are lovable. Sex is not the sole container for intimacy. And when you confuse sex with love, security, validation, and worth, you can overload sex with meaning that it just cannot carry. When sex has to carry everything, intimacy, love, security, worth, validation, pressure replaces play. Avoidance grows. Confidence and connection get way harder. Sex collapses under that weight, not because you're broken, but because it is too much pressure for any one system to hold.